next artist, John Deephouse, could not be here. But he sent me a few notes in an email that he asked me to share with you. Lori, I tried to think of what I would say if I were there Thursday and feel challenged to do so. My process of creating an image that reflected Tracy's eloquence was largely instinctive, based on the visual imagery created by her words. The print that resulted was a joining of two images, both of which seemed to correspond to the ideas she presented. Birds taking flight, feeling representative of departing, and the mournful, gentle image of a cemetery memorial capturing the sense of loss associated with letting go and saying goodbye. And now, Tracy, Morris, if we could hear you read the poem that inspired John.
I just look at that picture and I feel my mom's hands. Thank you, John. To let go. Head rests on pillow. Glasses sit askew across closed eyes. Hair, streaked silver, fans out. Wisps rest on sallow cheeks. Hands, slight, clasp around, clasp onto something unseen. Tips bluing. Flanges, carpals, metas not moving. Veins wrap joints like ribbons. Heart beats strong, then soft. Soft, then strong. Seemingly random, yet steadfast in unsteady rhythm. Determined to hold tight, hold out, hold on. Speak to her, says the nurse. Says it to me softly. Says it again to ensure she's heard. You should speak to her. You can let go, I say to you. Say it to you softly. I say again to ensure you hear me. It's all right. You can let go. Head turns slightly. Glasses slip into place. Shuttered eyes flutter faintly. Hair drifts off face across pillow. My fingers smooth string strands. Your fingers splay open, soft, blue. My lips graze a vein, pulsely fainting, a final gift. Your heart steadily slows. My heart, in sync, simply shatters.
Tracy,
Yes.
who is that about?
It's about my mom, Loretta Morris. We lost her in May of 2016. She battled kidney disease and pulmonary hypertension with the soul of a lion, the spirit of a comedian, and the heart of God, I would say. She fought like a champ, and she's with me every day.
So in the spirit of Refraxis, you looked at that painting and you saw your mother.
Actually, in the spirit of Refraxis, I spoke about my mom, and he saw her hands. This was the response to my poem. So I thank him so much for that. Now, during that time, I write a lot in my poetry about family. My family was like my anchor. And between 2015 and 2018, I pretty much lost my family. My mom took ill and died. My sister and I had a very bitter disagreement, and to this day we still aren't speaking. We're trying to get back to that point. So when I write now, it's like I'm writing to try and rebuild a family. So in the piece that I responded to, Sisters, where you see two little girls there smiling at each other, I saw my sister and I when we were 9 and 4 in a picture, and we were kind of snickering and giggling to each other. The cameraman couldn't get us to smile until he clicked, and then it was just a burst of giggles and laughter and hitting each other, and you had to wear shorts and you had to wear a dress, and we just had so much fun. And I'm hoping that I can get that back, and a little of it came back in this painting that Jean created. It's so beautiful. So the piece that I wrote is called Nostalgia, and I dedicate it to my sister. Her name's Deborah. We laughed so much back then, but never for the camera. We'd share silted smiles or sly smirks, but no laugh that was visible through a viewfinder. We hid it in the squeeze of small fingers, the slight tilt of our heads towards each other, whispers about itchy tights and frilly skirts that turned giggles into snickers with shutter clicks, then off we'd race, faces alight, hands clasped. We laughed so much back then. But somehow, over time, we developed our inside jokes into outright grievances, a negative without a camera. We mutated our memories into sepia, curled at the edges, creased across the eyes, sticky to the touch from being taped down too long on forgotten photo album pages. We laughed so much back when? A Sunday? Your birthday? How old were we when we last leaned into each other? 7? 27? 47? Do you see the traces of our giggles when you look at pictures of us? Do you, even for a second, wonder if we will ever find a way to feel laughter in the squeeze of our clasped hands?
Project. I'm number 65 this year. There are 30 in each volume. This is the third year. And Dennis Araki knows my work, and so he interviewed me and wrote an essay. And it's published by Wayne State Press, this review. So yes, it is. It's a great thrill for me. And it was nice because he said things that I never recognized in my own work, so it was very enlightening for me. So the piece, I loved Suma's poem when I initially read it because there was a sense of humor about it. And I'm not a poet and I don't read a lot of poetry, so I kept trying to understand it. And as I was reading, there's a great deal of despair that I felt was in the work. And I think as artists are, it's very frustrating because you have this relation with what you're working with and this sense of humor and this wonderfulness. But it's difficult because you have to push it through and you have to make it right, and it takes a lot of work. So my work is generally, I work in duality. I'm very interested in how you have one side and then another, humor a lot of times in my own work. So I asked Linda Nezio, or Linda Allen, we went up north, and I said, oh, Linda, I don't know how to even begin this. It's so hard for me. And she said, well, just begin at the beginning. You have to start. So I took the poem and I took all of the verbs, I wrote them down, and I was so taken with the action and the carefulness with every verb and how it had a meaning. So again, I started just by cutting out the words and the verbs, and I thought I'm just going to sew. I'm just going to sew them together. And as I was sewing, I thought, really, when you're working with poetry, it's like these thought clouds that you get. And so that's the duality of the two scrolls and this kind of linear notion that you start at the beginning, and the poem really was very linear. And the idea that you do have these kind of flowers or thought clouds and their events that kind of clump together. But the frustration I felt and the despair in the poem is you can't always call upon just like that to be creative. For me, it has to sit and it has to gel. And so I felt the frustration and the despair. So that's why I call this poetic despair or poetic despairs. And I felt, the more I read the poem, the more I felt really close to Suma, because it was, it was really distinctive as the way I work, and I felt a real kinship with poetry, music, art, and how as a creative person, it's often so tough to just call upon it when you need it. I did it once before, can I make it work again? So I love this poem.
Thank you. Wow, okay, first, Jeannie, I'm so honored. That's blown away. Quick little story about this poem before I read it for you guys. I used to write all the time, and then I stopped for close to 2 decades. And then Don McDuffie, who's here today. Yay, Don! invited me to participate in one of her poetry workshops, which I did because I figured it'd be good for me to get out of my comfort zone. And this is the first poem I wrote after not writing for years. And it is about that whole, am I really a poet? Do I really get to call myself a poet? And I think the more I do this and the more that I interact with poets and artists of all sorts, the more I realize that this is not just my thing. The difference between me and a real poet. You bow to the words, their incessant inconvenience. Drop everything, scribble verse on a receipt from Target if your moleskin is out of reach. I shrug them off, get in the car, drive to work while you order another cup of coffee. My husband turns my everyday speech into lyrics, sings them back to me. Sometimes I sing too, ridiculous songs made up on the spot in perfect iambic pentameter. I throw away lines in everyday life you would kill to compose. But I don't write them down. I don't pull over, grab a pen from the dash, and capture my momentary genius, or dictate verse to Siri while navigating the lodge. The cafe owner refers to you as a poet with a capital P, asks how your book is coming, and offers you a warm-up, while I sit in traffic and stare at the empty lines. The next one? Lori? Lori, all right, cool. So I totally hit the jackpot with this. Jeannie and Lori, I saw this cute little bird with the red shoes, and I was like, oh yeah, that's it. That's my guy, he's coming home with me. And on the way home, I was puzzling over, I'm not going to give it away, Lori. I was puzzling over, but I want them to figure it out.
Okay.
She told me, here's what she told me. We met over the painting, and she said, the name of this painting is The Serious Moonlight, and that's all I'm going to tell you. And I live in Farmington Hills, so I had quite a drive, like 45 minutes, and the whole way home I'm like, what, The Serious Moonlight, that seems so. And then like right before I pulled into my driveway, I was like, oh my God. And I knew exactly what was going on, and for those of you who figure it out, right on. Oh, you gave it away, Ryder! Okay. So here, this is my response to Lori's piece called Red Shoes. Gone is the time of sandals and sunshine. The lush leaves of summer have fallen. My petals have curled. I am brittle branch and moonbeam, cold and quiet and waiting. When will you twirl me again? When will you show me the sun in your flower face, run your wispy fingers through my aching? I cling to my red shoes, a desperate hope. I long to feel you, pull my wrist, tuck your palm into the small places, and whisper, let's dance.
As one of the organizers of this event, I get to choose last. There's not a whole lot of poems left, and this poem by Ava Ansari, did Ava show up? By Ava Ansari was really a challenge for me. Someone will read it. One of you poets can volunteer. She's writing about war and being a small child experiencing war, and I'm someone who's lived her whole life in the state of Michigan and never experienced anything beyond the troubles of an individual life. But as she's going on in the poem, she's talking about, this is how I interpreted it, how do people cope with horrors in their lives? How do you get through each day? And she's talking about dance. And I did a really hokey thing, read people dancing. Oh my God, that's disgusting. So I got through life up to this point, and I'm sure I will continue to do so by making marks. So my piece is very mark-driven. I made it two pieces because I was feeling that tension of being curbing this young girl in Iran during the Iran-Iraq War, what it's like to be in this country, what it's like for me, you know, as a white woman of privilege and growing up in this horrible place and time. And you could see, if you look at the original piece, this is actually got, this is a play, so a page torn out of a book. Ed Marsh let me do that. On a book, so there's a play in there, there's a little strip of from music. So the arts are the way, to me, that we cope with horrors. So, because I'm afraid I'll have a coughing jag, can I have a volunteer poet to read Ava's poem?
Sure.
Okay,
You got the text?
I do.
I'm honored to read Alice's poem. Opala. We party to survive. We remember days and nights. We remember bodies and nights moving under the ground over their fears with no lights. We remember grandmas, grandpas, mamas, dads, uncles, aunties, or whoever was there to show us how to party. Yes, we remember the bombing. Alarm during Iran-Iraq war from September 22nd, 1980 to August 20, 1988. We still remember we must dance before we die or get separated. I remember I was 3 in our living room with the other kids when the horrifying airstrike alarm again vanished our peace. My grandma came in with her boombox, blasting Iranian pop with no grief. I remember her heavy breath, her hard moves, her crying, her smile. I remember her watching over, the alarm watching over me. I still felt in my spine. I remember my mom doing her makeup quickly on the other side of the room. I remember her horrified if the rescue teams found her hands with no nail polish out of the ruins.
Ava responded to a work by John Osler by writing the poem To the Red Painting. Yeah, John Osler's piece is The Girl in Red. Ava called hers To the Red Painting. I'll try to read this one. To the Red Painting. A red mountain looks back at the blue sky and bursts into solidarity bright. The pain of the screwifiction makes hearts, mountains, and bodies light when one accepts its fate without a fight and chooses to cry or not to cry. That person has the power of changing night to day, day to night. These people know how to unite. John Osler, would you like to come up and talk about it?
This painting is something it's the way I paint. I start to do a scene, I end up doing a face. And because I don't draw that well, so I just start, it gets bigger and bigger because I think that's what I like. So when I get done with the painting, there's someone that I enjoy being with. And a lot of times in this painting, it was from a black and white photo. That's probably why I could do any color I wanted. I chose red. Not a big deal. But it was more in the expression where you don't really know what she's thinking. I think Ava really got that because when she says cry or not to cry. And so that's all I could say. That's what I do.
This happened last June when my husband Roger and I went out for my birthday to see a play at the Matrix, which was a political play, kind of humorous, and it had some serious overtones too. It's called At the Matrix Theater, Mexican Town. Her eyes unmoving see nothing. They do not blink. They are crystalline pools looking beyond even the weeping of her darker partner, the man who moans over and over, "Stay with me, sweetie." After she talks with the young woman, "You're one of my kids," I hear her say. This large woman climbs toward a seat, misses a step, a backward fall, full force, her shaved head striking floor, a cracking sound. She lies there still, the moans of her lover rising and falling like waves, like chords of a love song, like a wizard's incantations. To turn back the clock, only seconds, erase what I've seen. We are hoping her ride is here, waiting for her rescue, for healing men in EMS jackets to come, to lift her long body, not yet lifeless, to a stretcher, her neck brace bound. They take their time. 10 minutes. After she's gone, after the red lights cease, the play about guns begins. It's about a Southern senator who grows a pair, speaks his truth, fights against unexpected violence. In the first scene, the senator cries out, "How could I believe in a God that would let this happen?" Found out, we were obviously haunted by that trauma, and we stopped off at the desk, and they said she was, quote, okay, and I do not know, but it was very frightening.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah. No, I think that part of the lack of knowledge is an issue. Today, I was drawn to this painting for many reasons, because I grew up in the 50s and I saw a typewriter that I kind of had recognized that predated me a little bit. I saw the kind of phone I remember first, the teapot, and the glasses. And I want to say, as I was, it's hard. Jackie and I talked, and she said, "I don't know what to do here." And I said, "You have to do what you do as an artist, which is to allow things to come to you as you look at whatever poem you're going to look at," and I'm sure that happened with hers. I went home and I had a false start, which happens, Sumo will know that it happens all the time. You know, I had a false start, but I kept going back to these glasses. And I thought, I have a dear relationship, wonderful relationship with the poet laureate of the UP, Russell Thorburn, who's guided me through now a second chapbook, or book of poetry, and he's hounded me to talk more about, etc. So I just said, here's this picture by email. I said, what mid-20th century writer wrote these, or wore these? And he said, Beckett. Well, Beckett wrote my very favorite play, which is Waiting for Godot, which means that I am, of course, partially insane, but that's all right. You know? I keep going back to that play as it kind of helps me navigate my life. But I started thinking about Beckett, and I thought, the painting is Hold On, so somebody's obviously got to go away from the phone. So I'm trying to be Beckett. So I begin with lines from the play. Beckett in Paris, December 1948. Rue des Favorites. Vladimir, time has stopped. Pozzo. Do not believe it, sir. Don't you believe it. Whatever you like, but not that. It's from Atondo Godot. He stares at the wallpaper. Leafy green vines curl about themselves as his mind loops round an image of two men contemplating the moon. Half uprooted tree branches like claws, like the curling vines on the wall. Hold on, he tells a man on the other end of the phone, and he exits the room, receiver resting on the desk, annoyed that his quiet was disturbed by the phone's jangled ringing. His chest cough rattles, as if the Turkish cigarettes, so renowned for their flavor, have blasted a channel, a road into his lungs, despite the pleasant, delicate aroma, sweet, mild, fresh flavor. He shuffles back to the phone, looks for his glasses, looks for what he was thinking about, what words he wanted to type when the phone cut into his consciousness, his thought. What was it? He cannot tell the man. that not even black English tea will serve to give him clarity. He cannot tell the man what he was doing or thinking, how in the misty night of his brain he sees only despair and fools waiting by a tree.
Jackie Rubinski's not here tonight. She painted this piece, Pirouette, in response to the poem by Mary Stebbins Tate, Pirouette's How Geraldine Becomes a Seamstress. Mary, you be able to come up to read it?
This poem, Pirouettes, is part of a book-length manuscript of poetry that I'm working on called Counting Fingers, Smelting Light, about the life of a girl who was born normal but became handicapped due to a serious case of measles and a very high fever when she was 3 years old. And it explores her entire life from birth to, well, till old age anyway. And so this is one poem from that collection. And I love the pirouettes, and going to have a dancer. You're going to have an imaginary dancer up here doing pirouettes. So, pirouettes, how Geraldine becomes a seamstress. Geraldine stares. Oh, and this is a guzzle, by the way. Geraldine stares, smiles and stares as the leaves fall. Like rain, like snow, like cats and dogs, the leaves fall. Reds and oranges, yellows and browns, purples and golds, mustards and plums, soar, drop, and drift. Hundreds of leaves fall. Leaves flutter and wobble, leaves dance and tumble, leaves catch the light and hold it brightly, briefly, sunlit, the falling leaves. Under the trees, thousands of leaves. Geraldine lifts handfuls, armfuls, tosses them high, and tilts up her face to the falling leaves. They shine like church windows, fly like maple seeds, sing like hummingbird wings, rattle like bones, the falling leaves. She piles up leaves and falls backwards into them, spreads her arms and laughs. Above her, the leaves fall. She waves her arms, opens and closes her legs, pushes leaves back and forth, makes angels in the fallen leaves. On her belly, she tunnels, buries herself, swims and rolls, and comes up like an otter to a sky full of leaves falling. She sniffs them. They smell like dirt, like the forest, like autumn, like the grass and the flower gardens, buried now by fallen leaves. She strokes them. They feel like paper, like leather, like velvet, like cloth, like sandpaper, like skin, like love, the fallen leaves. Fragments of fabric, brightly colored bows, birthday confetti, plucked petals of flowers, bits for collage, the fallen leaves. She studies the veins, the patches of colors, the subtle changes, sorts and matches them, no two alike, the fallen leaves. On a bolt of cloth she traces leaves, cuts the shape and paints. With mother's help, stitches them to make a quilt, sleeps under fallen leaves. In the morning, leaves again. Geraldine dances. She twirls and pirouettes, sings, laughs, and murmurs merry noses in the fallen and falling leaves.